86, 86, 87.
All right, we're live now. All right, so we want to start off by saying all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakodash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of GMS Uruwa, who we learned this truth from. And salutations and blessings to you elect out there. All right, starting with the 144,000. So this lesson is going to go into some history on pretty much the title is Israelites in Rome. All right, so-called dark-skinned, so-called black people in Rome. All right, because pretty much you have I did a video on Denzel being in Gladiator 2 and people being upset, right? People being upset that Denzel's in Gladiator 2 playing he's not even playing an emperor, but they're upset that he's allegedly playing an emperor. But that's not his role. But that's showing you these people, a lot of you Edomites, a lot of you heathens, some of you Jakes, right? You get butthurt um because of the true history. But he's playing allegedly, what is it, a broker or something? He owns gladiators, right? And he's pretty well off, and they can't understand it, because they're really stupid, and ignorant that a prominent so-called black person lived in Rome when there were many people like that, you know. So I don't know if you want to start. I had something quick on Wikipedia.
Um,
What's up? You hear me? Yeah.
yeah, I can hear you. Well, this is sex and race. This is show that this is basically Emperor Honorius in Rome, just to get more insight, because people think that this is a lie, right? So this actually happened, that our people were ruling in Rome at a certain time, and at a certain time we were in slavery too. So it's not like it never happened. Like, oh, all Negroes are in Africa. That's like stupid. People were all scattered across the whole earth because there was work, there was labor, there was food, trades to be done. People
Mhm.
sailed, so people got around, just like how people get around today. I'll just read this part here. It says about Negroes in ancient Rome and Carthage. The earliest known natives of Italy were Negroes, as was said, thus making the base of the Latin race Negroid. D. Wilson, basing his observation on the earliest Etruscan pottery, refers to well-known examples of Etruscan vases molded in the forms of Negro heads. So our people were, making pottage and stuff like that after their own likeness. That's even um, in the Dark Ages. There's certain stuff like um, medallions and stuff like that that is still left, and Esau has them in his upper echelon libraries, where you can't go on those certain floors. It's only certain people of echelon of society that can go and look at these things. Just read a little bit more. It says heads of the Greek pottery painted with the same characteristics, features, and woolly hair. Specimens of both were preserved among collection of the British Museum, furnish interesting evidence alike of permanency of the Negro type and the familiarity both of the Greek and Etruscan artists with the African features long prior to the Christian era. That's all I have there for.
Hmm.
I'll
Yeah,
read
yeah,
something
because
later on.
even yeah, like that was a good point. Prior to the Christian era, because like you were saying, Rome was the place to be, man. Right? Rome was the Babylon of its times, you know, or Nineveh, you know, or or um or Athens, Greece. You know, it was the place to be. It was a place of trade. It was a place of commerce and business. And you had many Israelites going under various titles. They would be called barbarians, Scythians, Thracians, you know, Greeks. They would be called Romans themselves as well, right?
Hmm.
Just like Cornelius, he was of the Italian band, and people get their heads messed up about they hear Italian, you know, they think about a blue-eyed blonde man, right? But
Yeah.
Italian meant a lot of different things, man, because you had so much mixture of people. You know,
Yep.
we know in the ministry that Italia, first of all, that was the land of Japhet, and those were dark skinned people. When you can look it up, right? The Etruscans in Greece, they were known as Darians, Ionians, right? They had different monikers. So I'm going to read a little bit on this article. This is from Wikipedia, right? You can type this in. It's called "Black People in Ancient Roman History," right? And you have this picture here, right here, of a Jake, and it says a young toga-clad man of letters holding a scroll, right? And Jakes wore the togas and the apparel, and they had those names of those other nations, which is why this is a very important part when you go into the topic of the Gentiles, right? So it says in classical antiquity, Greek and Roman writers were acquainted with people of every skin tone, from very pale, associated with with populations from Scythia, which is again this is Wikipedia, so they're gonna have to push that. A lot of the Scythians, those were Israelites. You know, when you come to find out, that's why Paul said there's no difference between Greek and Scythian or barbarian and Scythian. He made a clear
Hmm.
distinction of Scythia because you had a large population of Israelites living in there. Um, to very dark, associated with populations from sub-Sahara Africa, people described with words meaning black or as Ethiops, which is where Ethiopian, right? Get that word from,
Hmm.
which Ethiopian in Greek it means burnt face. And you had these. I remember, bro. If you remember years ago on the highways when we used to tell Cushites that they didn't know that they would actually contest that you did, you know, they're like, no, Ethiopian doesn't mean burnt face, but it's a Greek word, Aethios. That was the thing
That's
that the
right.
Greeks called you, you know, a burnt face. It didn't necessarily mean a Cushite. It can mean any person of dark skin, but they would call you Aethios, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
it says, so Aethiops are occasionally mentioned throughout the empire in surviving writings, and people with very dark skin tone and tightly curled hair are depicted in various artistic modes, you know. And pretty much it says that down here, Aethiops. In classical antiquity, terms such as Afer, Morus, Niger, Ater, Fuchsius, Perustus, or Melis were commonly used in reference to darker tone physical characteristics encountered in daily life around the Mediterranean. The term Aethiops referred to particularly dark-skinned people, first recorded as early as Homer, who presented them as remote, almost legendary figures that inhabited the far reaches of the known world. All right, I'm gonna jump around because again, this is Wikipedia, so they have to be very careful and they have to, you know, they can't say too much here.
Hmm.
But you can, you know, that was pretty much it on that. But you can read up and down, you know, and that shows you the fact that they have this article here on Wikipedia. They didn't really used to have these things. That's showing you the truth being pushed out there. And this is from another website called Imperium Romanum .pl, and it's called Black People in Ancient Rome. Um, it says, according to the fathers of the church, Jerome and Sophronius of Jerusalem, at the end of the 4th century AD, Colchis was called the Second Ethiopia, due to the overwhelming number of black people, which Colchis, if I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna look it up, but it was a city. Is a region, right? Colchis is ancient region south of the Caucasus, western part of modern Georgia. All right, and those people, Jerome and all those people, those are dark skinned people anyway themselves. All right, it says what is worth jumping down. What is worth mentioning? Oh, the brother's on. So yeah,
Oh,
shalom, bro.
so good morning.
Shalom.
Yeah.
Yo, Bashim Yashar
Shabbat
Barakatah.
shalom.
Okay, so yeah, whenever you brothers want to chime in, I'm just reading some history here. So it says, what is worth mentioning is that black people were not slaves and servants in the Roman world. Some of them became writers, chiefs, and philosophers, and according to the Byzantine chronicler John Malalas, even Emperor Septimius Severus had dark skin. And this is their bullshit they have to put, though it does not seem to be black, right? But they hate to admit it, but they
Yeah,
can't go around it because you have the image of Septimius, right? When brothers know this image
yeah,
here. But what do you mean he's not black? He's just olive, you know?
Yeah.
It just bugged out. And no and you see his son, his second son right here, right? He's completely blotted out. That was a thing called iconoclasm.
And
hmm
you can
Right?
see he has woolly hair, like a fro, right?
That's right.
yeah,
That's right. You know? So like I said, and we come to find out through the spirit that Septimius Severus wasn't even the first one. He wasn't the
that's right.
first so-called black emperor. You know, when you go into the
hmm
history, you had the 12 feathers in Second Esdras, which are generally known as Edomites. Although I believe I've heard Apostle Tahar say even some of those at the end were Israelites. Which we got to go into that history too. But you had Septimius Severus. He was very prominent because he was fighting other Jakes. He was fighting a guy named Pesinius Niger um,
Yeah. The same
during
book I
this
have,
time.
it has the information.
Khan, yeah, yeah.
It has it.
When you're ready, you can bring it out. But he was
hmm
fighting that guy. There's another guy called Didius Julianus, I believe. And I remember I was going into the history years ago, and pretty much they had regions, man. This guy would have Britannia. He would, someone would have maybe Iberian Peninsula, and they would fight with their armies. And pretty much Septimius came out on top, you know. Um, so it
I have
says,
wait.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
go ahead, go ahead.
this is African president in early Europe. Since you're going to Septimius Severus,
Mm-hmm.
this is
Shalom to
page
the comment board, to the bros. Shalom.
one,
Yeah. Shalom, Akim.
page 223. The Roman occupation of England under the African emperor Septimius Severus, who brought into England from Rome and from his home in Nom- in Nomadia, northern Africa, a large contingent of African officials and soldiers around 2000 BC. So he had a lot of influence,
Mm-hmm.
and they had the whole North Africa and Europe basically, you know, under their occupation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, Even England,
Mm-hmm.
no, but that's pretty much it. But like this is like the same image what you just showed, but like
Oh,
this is like black and white, of Septimius Severus. Right?
God, God, God. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
much.
And they have to, and they have to use that term, African, that
Yeah,
buzzword, African,
yeah,
right? Which, when you read that, you think Africa, but it's not. Has nothing to do with that. Because first of all, when you go into the dispersion of Israelites, like for example during the Greek period, like with the Maccabees and the Israelite citizens that a lot of them got killed, and then a lot of them uh, converted to the Greek way of life, the Greek fashion, right, the Hellenism. But even before that, you had Israelites all throughout Asia Minor, right, just dispersed, man. The strangers of Israel, the outcasts, right, the
Con.
so-called Gentiles, and Jake, Jake works, but Jake is loud too. Jake gets lit. So Jake, he's gonna come up into prominence in whatever society he's in. You know, he might be a
Yeah.
chief philosopher of his time, or a politician or senator. You know, and we know in the Roman Empire they went up high, man. They became Praetorian guards. You know, they might have started as gladiators and they won. You know, and then they had their own stable of gladiators, and then they went up into the politics because after you become like a head gladiator, or a head of gladiators, you're looking at a political office as well. You know, you're trying to
Hmm.
get up in there. So back in the website here, Imperium Romanum, um, it says he sooner had a Berber origin and was the first emperor from Africa. And you go into that a lot. The Berbers kind of walk, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of history as well. Um, it says, as for the slaves, even the blacks were liberated and became prominent citizens of Rome.
Because
Right?
remember, even before Septimius Severus, like a couple hundred years before, you had Hannibal Barca and then Hannibal Lecter, right?
That's
And
right.
they were basically fighting against the Roman Empire, and they wanted to take over, but it wasn't
Yeah,
that
Hannibal
time.
Carthage. It was Hamilcar, Carth, Hamilcar,
Carthage,
the father of Hannibal.
yeah,
Hmm.
of Carthage, right? And basically, like they were fighting against the Roman Empire, but it wasn't that time, you know.
Hmm.
And like Hannibal tried to defeat the Roman Empire, but
Con.
he didn't succeed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
It
did a
wasn't
good.
time. It wasn't
He did a
prophecy, right?
70,000 bodies in one day, which is like pretty high.
That's
But
the
King
body.
David did more. But it was the Most High only allowed him to go that far. But he was working with Satan, and then eventually Carthage was overthrown because Rome was time. It was time for them to rise because they were given.
Con. Yeah. They
There was
couldn't. They
a
couldn't take him out yet. That was the
yeah,
the fourth beast, man. It had to do his thing.
And then
yeah,
eventually
because
we get like Jake went to slavery under under the Roman Empire. So and then some of that went into the whole gladiator games and became slaves in the Roman Empire as well.
Con. Yeah. He was fighting the Edomite Romans, man. You know.
mhm,
Although you had Jakes in the armies, but those were the top were Edomites. So here it says what is worth emphasizing is the aforementioned Emperor Septimius Severus, who legalized marriages between soldiers and local women. In this way, children from mixed couples were born, and you already know majority of that is Jake on Esau, or Jake with other nations. You know, um, it says historian Anthony Burley, in his book Septimius Severus, the African Emperor, explains that between 193 and 211 AD, the Roman Empire was a multicultural mix of people from Syria, Germania, Britain, Spain, and Africa. In addition, he claims that at the time, 8 men of African origin commanded Roman legions in the north, and others were equids, right? Now, again, like we always say that word African, right? So they have to say that. They can't say really anything else except maybe black, but these were majority of them were Israelites, right? And when he said the others were this word equite, and equite were a middle class social class that included merchants, entrepreneurs, and bankers. So that was Jake, you know, that was Jake, man,
Yeah.
right?
mhm.
Um, and the word derives from horse, so that shows the power right there, equite. I'm just gonna read a little bit more because they're gonna touch on the color aspect of everything, right? Um, it says Romans were not racist at all. They did not judge by their skin color, but rather by their origin. It says the Romans used the general term for black inhabitants, describing them as Ethiopians, which we just touched on. That Ethiopian just meant Ethiops, burnt
Mhm.
face, right? That was the generalization. Um, Let me see. Yeah, that was pretty much it. That was it. What I wanted to touch on the color. You brothers, go ahead.
Oh, I got something here. It's First Peter's 1:1. Peter, apostle of Yahushua wa Hamashiach, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, Bithynia, which is in these regions, right, where Rome was actually ruling, and that our people were all over these places because of work, trade, and of living inhabitants, right? And some that got that didn't want to be in Israel. They left the land and wanted to keep the other nations type of gods, or either because Jake seen a woman of the other nation and then settled down and then dealt with that woman and then tried to get an inheritance or something.
Mhm.
Usually that would be the case. Read the rest here and finish. Elect according to the foreknowledge of God the Father through sanctification of the Spirit unto obedience and sprinkling of the blood of Yahushua Hamashiach, grace unto you and peace be multiplied. So our people are
What
all
scripture
over
was
the
that?
First Peter 1:1.
Oh, yep.
I only read up to 2.
I had a quick one in Acts 2 and yeah, 2 and 8. This is during the time of Pentecost, right? It says, "And how hear we every man in our language, in our own tongue, wherein we were born, Parthians and Medes and Elamites and the dwellers in Mesopotamia, and in Judea and in Cappadocia and Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia in Egypt, and the parts of Libya about Cyrene, and strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians, we do hear them speak in our tongues the wonderful works of the Most High." Right? So who are these strangers of Rome? Who are all these Israelites from Egypt and Medes and Elamites? Some of them knew they're Israelites. A lot of them were in that Gentile state of mind. Right? Now, there's something here I just wanted to read on Septimius from the same website, Imperium Romanum. It says his family, right? He came from a wealthy and respectable family with Punic ancestry pedigree, right?
So
And you
he's
brother,
a Carthaginian.
yeah, that's right. There you go.
He's a
There you
Phoenician,
go.
or which were Jake, and
Yeah.
also they're mixed up with the Hamites as well because they were men of the sea. So they were into heavy merchandise, heavy trade,
Mm-hmm.
building. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Punic. That term Punic is a big buzzword for Carthaginian, which Punic, I believe it's a Hebrew word, just like Carthage. I forget though. We haven't gone into that in so long, but those are all Hebrew
Carthage,
words as well.
I believe it meant new city, or was New Jerusalem.
But yeah, something like that. All right.
yeah,
So he was
new
of
city.
Punic.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then it says his father's name was Publius Septimius Geta, right? Geta. So
Hmm.
Jake's had all these Italianized names, man, Italian names, right? Because they grew up in that way of life. And I believe Septimius Severus, it's not like he was an aid to the Israelites. I believe he persecuted Christians as well, right? So it's just Jake's. It's not like, we're saying these are righteous people. But like I said, man, a lot of people are butthurt about Denzel.
it's
Yeah,
right.
It's hilarious, man. And like I said, they're mad because they're thinking he's playing an emperor, but he's not playing an emperor. He's playing a Roman a owner of gladiators, right? Like a broker, right? He'll buy and sell them, and then he'll see how they do in the arena. But they're like a black emperor, a black Caesar. Yeah, you idiots,
Yeah,
right?
cause Jake was in high power throughout Rome. They weren't just like gladiator owners. They were generals. They were in what do you call it?
Own
They were
cattle.
like they were like also like aristocrats.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
Roman Empire, you know.
Hmm. Now, this is some history on Septimius, right? It says at that time the legions in Syria proclaimed Gaius Pesinius Niger the emperor. Now, this is what I was talking about when Septimius was pretty much warring with other Israelites, right? It says there was also another rival to the throne, an earlier supporter of Didius Julianus Claudius Albinus, the governor of Britain. Septimius decided to give him the rank of Caesar, which would satisfy his lust for power, and he went to the east to deal with Niger. In 194 AD, he destroyed the usurper's army in the Battle of Issus and went to the Byzantium, where he ordered to cover the tomb of Hannibal with the best marble. Why did he do that? Because he knew Hannibal, they're the same people. And Edomites not going to do that. And
Hmm.
Edomites hated Hannibal, right?
Yeah.
It says he ordered to raze the city to the ground, and as the residents decided to support the usurper, however, after several years, Severius decided to rebuild it, and it is Septimius who is credited with starting the construction on the ruins of the Greek city, a typical Roman metropolis. After 100 years, his project was continued by Constantine the Great. Oh,
So
just a little
see how
history
they
on.
were building, these great cities and stuff, man. They were they're big builders, and they were basically like they were like architects, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Real architects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, this is the part I was talking about. It says Severius's reign was also characterized by the persecution of the Christians. Local authorities did not seek out Christians, but if a Christ follower had already been discovered, they were told to renounce Yahushua and offer the Roman deities a sacrifice. If he had not done that, he would have been sentenced to death. In 202 AD, Severius issued a decree that banned the admission of Christian and Jewish faith and assemblies, which intensified the repression of these groups, right? So again, like we're not saying that these are righteous men, but it's just the history speaks for itself,
'Cause we were being
right?
persecuted by
Hmm.
wicked Nigers.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. The scripture says, among my people are found wicked men,
wicked men.
right? So
That's right.
our people,
That's right.
this is the reason why we're in this predicament.
And then when
Even
going to what's his name? Like Constantine the Great, and he had that treaty like 330 something AD. I think 330 AD or something.
yeah, it
And
was around there.
around that time, and basically like they established that whole Christianity, that Sunday worship, and they established all the churches throughout Europe and Africa and stuff. You know,
Hmm.
Yep. The
It
Council
was
of Nicaea,
basically,
right?
the Council of Nicaea. Yeah.
yeah.
So I had something from Nature Knows No Color Line. This is from page 52, and it says there is good reason to believe that certain Negroes and near Negroes rose to be Roman emperors. Indications of this are in the surnames, which were often given then according to some physical characteristic. It is likely, therefore, that Roman families or descendants of them, bearing names generally given Negroes, originated as such. In Rome, Negroes were first called Ethiops or Aethiopes. The Romans
Hmm.
took that name from the Greeks, who took it from the Africans. Later, more seem to have come into fashion. This too was an African word imported into the Greek to describe the black people, that is, Moros, black.
So all
The
these
word,
words. Yeah.
mhm, yep. The word Mauritania in Greek meant black, says Harper. Still later came Niger from the river of that name. Um,
And Jake throughout like Mauritania and
Mm-hmm.
throughout West Africa, they had great cities. You know, they had big castles and big cities, man, walls and stuff. And basically, like they destroyed a lot of that knowledge, and they destroyed a lot of that that information.
God. God.
Nigeria, Morocco, certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Because like North Africa was very affluent, right? But they destroyed it. When Esau came back to power, destroying all the relics and you know.
God. That was it on that.
I have Revelation 20:1, and I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, the old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. So Esau was he was in high esteem under the Greco-Roman Empire, but like towards the end, Jake Jake that rose up to power eventually, and became like became emperors, and then like Septimius Severus, and then eventually like Constantine the Great with the Council of Nicaea, you know, and also like the Moors, like the Moors was practicing that whole that the whole Islam in 711 AD throughout Spain
Mm-hmm.
and Portugal, right? And they were in power for over 700 years, you know, and living affluent all throughout Europe and built up and educated that the people of Europe because Europe was in a dark age, but the so-called Moors was like the eight was like were like the light bearers of like certain of knowledge and stuff, right? And bound him 1,000 years and cast him to the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nation no more till the 1,000 years be fulfilled. And after that he shall be loose a little season. So basically we were in power for over 1,000 years, and then basically during basically during the whole like bubonic plague, a lot of Jake, basically like 2/3 of Europe, a lot of people like a lot of people died of the
Mm-hmm.
bubonic plague, right? They say that 2/3 of Jake, end up dying all throughout Europe, and then basically Alexander the Great, he was a pope, right? Alexander sorry, not Alexander the Great, Pope Alexander the sixth of Rome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rose up to power, and then you had the Borgia family,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had Jake that was still, certain Jake that were still in power, that were kings, and they basically allowed that whole um, Renaissance art, that whole Christianity, with the whole Renaissance art, and basically Jake started to get persecuted. So Jake eventually had to go throughout the Americas. A lot of the Jake, actually came, like to the Americas and set up shop in America and you know South America, the Caribbean, Central America, right? And
That's right.
basically, you had the whole. Eventually, like Esau came and then came to the Americas, and then and like that happened, and that basically happened to us. That we eventually fell, totally because Esau came over to the New World and set up a lot of like set up shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
It said till 1,000 years be fulfilled, and after that he should be loose a little season. So this is the little season that he's in. This is the little season that they're in, and they plan on bringing this whole NWO, and the whole goal is to have you a complete slave, and basically to have control, right? And but that's not going to happen with the elect. The elect is going to be saved, and we're not going to be in like we're not going to be persecuted. Like even though like we are going to be persecuted, but the elect is gonna have the victory
God.
because Yahweh Shai is gonna come, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, you're mentioning um the emperors before. You had the five good emperors, right? You had a term like that, the five good emperors, which those are Israelites, right?
yeah,
You had this guy Nerva, and I believe Marcus Aurelius was a part of that, right? And that was after pretty much, uh, and they also had all beards. That's when beards came into play because the Caesars before that they were all smooth faced,
clean
clean
shave.
shaven, which is
Yeah,
an indication. Right? Now I'm gonna read this part here. This is from when Scotland was Jewish, right? Page 80. Um, and this is just going into the strangers being the Israelites. It says Ben Bassa makes several important points on which we will comment. The Jews in France, which France earlier was called Gaul, the Gauls, right? And the Gauls also played a big role in the Roman armies as well. You know, um, the Jews there did not all come from Palestine. Many of them belonged to the diaspora, made up, and so if somebody can get James 1, 1 and 1, made up in part by populations converted to Judaism. The Christianization of the Roman Empire under Constantine the Great and the restrictions that gradually came to be imposed on the Jews favored their emigration, particularly to Gaul, which was slower to become Christianized. The settlement of Jews along an axis following the valley of the Rhone of the Rhone and extending from that of the Saône to its juncture with the Rhine corresponds to the route taken by the Roman legions, which Jews followed as soldiers, tradesmen, or merchants in search of a better life and more favorable economic condition. Um, so it says the Jews in Gaul dressed like the rest of the population, bore arms, and spoke the local language. Even in the synagogue, Hebrew was not the only language used for rituals. The ancestry names, Biblical, Roman, and Gallo Roman, did not differentiate them from other inhabitants.
so they're multilingual. Like they could speak more than one language for trade, and they were doing their thing.
Hmm. That's right. Together with the Byzantine and Syrians, Jews in France and elsewhere established international overland and maritime trading routes, controlling the bulk of Mediterranean commerce. And that was a hot business, man. If you're in that business, right, there's a lot of money in there. They
You're able
exported,
to trade.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you're able to trade, and and like trade things all over the world, throughout
Con.
Asia, throughout the Americas.
Yep. And you're gonna meet other women there in all
Yeah,
those lands.
yeah,
It says they exported slaves, furs, and silk manufactures to Italy, Spain, and the Levant, which is what the people call the Fertile Crescent, right? The scholars.
yeah.
And imported to Gaul spices, balsam, garum, dates, brocades, and precious metals. The crossroads of this luxury trade were located in the Meuse and at Narbonne. These traders could be found even in Paris, near the forecourt of Notre Dame today. Someone has James 1.
Yeah, James 1:1. James, a servant of Yahweh Shai and the Lord Yahweh Shai, Mashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. Greeting.
Mhm. That's right. And that word, when you look up scattered, it goes back to diaspora, which was mainly referring to the Israelite dispersion. Right. That was pretty much it for me.
We're a big nation, man. So the 10 tribes were, in the New World, after 722 BC. Um, basically, the Assyrian Empire, rose to power and enslaved the Northern Kingdom. Right. So after that, Second Esdras, I could get it. Second, actually, no, it's okay. But basically, Second Esdras 13 and 40, they were, the north, like the 10 tribes came to the New World, basically called Afterif, right?
Mhm.
Which means new land, right? So Jake, came to the New World and you know and set up shop.
That's right. And even before that, we know that even during the time of like the Trojans, that was a thing set up by mainly Judah, because they were
Hmm.
called Dardanians, and that goes back to Darda, which was a son of Judah. And
Hmm.
those people went there way before, man. They went there before Solomon. So you had Israelites all over just doing their thing, just going here,
Trading.
yeah, just setting up shop,
Yeah.
making a city, building a city, and all that. You know,
Hmm.
um, this is Isaiah 27:6, and this is a prophecy, but this is also referring to the abundance of Jake. It says, "He shall cause them that come of Jacob to take root. Israel shall blossom and bud and fill the face of the world with fruit." So that's going to be in the kingdom, but that's pretty much Jake today anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And that was the blessing that they gave to who was it, Sarah? I'm gonna try and find that. Yeah, at Genesis 24:60, it says, "And they blessed Slaki Rebecca, and said unto her, Thou art our sister, be thou the mother of thousands of millions, and let thy seed possess the gate of those which hate them." So thousands of millions, bro. That,
Yeah.
you know,
That's, you can't even count that.
yeah. The brother Pillars of Benjamin put up First Maccabees 12 and 2, 21. Slaki 12 and 21. "It is found in writing that the Lacedaemonians and Jews are brethren, and they are of the stock of Abraham." When you read in the GNT, I believe it actually says Spartans, right? If I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah.
Yep. Because you had a lot of history, man. A lot of history. And Jake became as bugged out as ever, man.
Hmm.
You know?
Oh, look at Jake. Jake is we're in a lower state, man. As a people, you know, we're in the worst. We're in the worst predicament as a nation, man. You know.
hmm I typed in when did the Roman emperors have beards, right? It says the elite members of society had their own personal household barber, and the richer you were, the less body hair you sported. Beards among Romans were revived by Emperor Hadrian around 100 AD, and facial hair has been going in and out of fashion ever since. And Hadrian was a part of one of the good emperors, one of the five good emperors. That shows you that's Jake, man. That's the spirit of Jake, you know?
Hmm.
Because when you're in the corporate world, you got to have at least a 5 o'clock, if not smooth shaven, and that's due to Esau. That's Esau's thing, man.
I remember
You
in
know,
the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, it says beard is a sign of manly
a
dignity.
badge of manly
Uh,
dignity. Yep,
yes.
like a badge.
A bad,
Yeah,
yeah.
gone. That's right. That's right. That was it for me. If bro's got anything to say or bring out,
Like you still have sex
Uh,
and race. What's up?
yeah. Yeah. I only just have a little small part here.
Okay.
On
bring it out.
uh, on page 86. Uh, Says some of the illustrious Romans bore the surname Niger or Negro, as Pescennius Niger, one of the greatest emperors. Another Niger was counselor to the royal family and accompanied Octavia, which I believe is another emperor.
Wow.
I'd have to check that back up though. But yeah, that's basically it from here. Let me see if I can show it. And this is in Sex and Race, Volume 1.
Very good.
Yeah, and then like this guy, the guy that Denzel is playing, he's a fictitious guy. He never existed, but the guy that he's playing the name, that was actually an emperor, Marcinus, right?
Mhm.
In the video I did on the website, they made a facial reconstruction, and it was a Jake. You know, it was an Israelite, right?
Yeah, that guy,
Um,
his name. Who's the director again? Ridley Scott, I think. I think it's
not
Ridley
sure.
Scott for that movie.
Gotta double check.
Because he does his research.
Well,
I
yeah, they had,
So people can get.
it's time. They got to bring it out, right? There's too
I
much heat.
I feel like the first one was better. I feel like the first one was good, but I want to see the second one. But you know,
Well, yeah, because that showed who Septimius Severus was, but they didn't want to put it out there. Like you had to um, do your research, the apostles did, and they explained it to us because we wouldn't have known that because we watched it while we were in the world, and we're just like, oh, okay, but when they explained it to us, then it opened up our eyes, right?
yeah,
So
because
certain things that Esau put, like
go ahead.
what stuff that he puts out there, he like certain characters, he'll put a white guy and say, or an Edomite, and then say, oh, this was a Edomite, but it was really a Jake most of the time, and that's what they did with
That's
the
what they
first one,
do, and basically like,
right?
this is what they do. They because
They plagiarize.
Jake, right, is pretty much in the same like gladiator arena, right? And Jake is
Hmm.
very prominent, you know, in all in all the sports, you know. Jake
Yeah,
is
the
the
UFC
one,
and all that.
yeah, like Jake is the one that's doing everything on in NBA, NFL, UFC, this and that.
Hmm.
Jake is the forefront,
Hmm.
of the mirth of this Roman Empire.
Con, con. Yeah, yeah. This is if you brothers can see, this is the reconstruction that they did of the guy that Macrinus.
That's a Jake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cause
So
see,
pretty
that's like
much
a rough Jake.
they reconstructed. This is what he would look like today from the coins and the busts, right? Pretty much. So that shows you, man. Like even this guy, this is Pesinius Niger,
Yeah,
right?
it look like he
So
has
that
like a turban. Or sorry, he's not wearing a turban, but he has like a
is woolly hair, woolly
yeah.
beard, you know. So yeah, man.
Wow.
So that was it. You brothers got anything?
Jeremiah 10:16. The portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. The Lord of hosts is his name.
Hmm.
So that's why like they don't really want to acknowledge these things, but Jake is the trendsetters, man. You know,
Con,
um,
Hmm.
throughout history, knowledge, Jake is the forerunner. With inventions. You know, it's the same thing what
Hmm.
happened during the whole Roman Empire. Jake played a heavy role in the Roman world, right? And basically made Rome become a great society, right? Because Jake played a major role.
Yeah, just like this place, Jake
Yeah,
played a major role of building America, and didn't get nothing, right?
yeah,
To this day, nothing.
yeah. Basically,
Building.
our people are the gatekeepers. So it's like,
Hmm.
like they're not really standing up for the average Jake, because they're told to keep their mouth, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's sick, but
So
It
the
is.
that
only way
time
that's
is.
gonna so the only thing that's gonna like liberate, sorry, that's gonna like deliberate, who's gonna like liberate us, right, is when Yahweh Shai comes, right?
Hmm.
Because
Mhm.
'cause Jake already sold out, Jake doesn't
Yeah,
care about their own people, you know
yeah,
And you can always find like these images. Like I'm just looking up. Like this one looks darker than the one before, right?
yeah.
Right. So
Like
sometimes
they
they just
blotted out because it
yep,
looked like that was his son, one of his
yep,
sons.
yeah,
That's
two
probably
sons,
his
yeah.
father.
And then even this one, there's a dark
Yeah,
patch here, and everything is light. And then you have this is the guy that Denzel's playing. Marcinus. You see the nose that they bust off the nose,
hmm
yeah,
you
right?
can see the hairline
And
is
this
Jake's
and
hairline.
this is Septimius's son, Caracalla, right?
Yeah,
So
well,
he was wicked
yeah.
too, man. Damn,
Oh yeah.
that
Oh yeah.
guy was wicked.
Just like Commodus, right? They show Commodus, you think he's an Edomite. We thought he's an Edomite. That was a Jake.
well.
Hmm.
Marcus Aurelius' son. He was an Israelite. You know, Jake is yeah, man.
So when's the movie coming out? I think it's in November, right?
Um,
Somewhere around there.
We could watch it.
yeah, I gotta go watch that for sure with the bros.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah, November 22nd. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
yeah, we go watch it, man. Lord's will. Because
Hmm.
that's after. I think that's after the whole election. We don't know what the hell's gonna happen, but it's just a,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just a,
Lockdown lords.
yeah, it's just a breaded circus, man. It's just you know because right
Hmm.
now you see what they want. They want civil war because you have the
Hmm.
Venezuelan like migrants and a whole bunch of
Yeah.
shit what's going on in America, right? So they want order of the chaos, you know, and the average Edomite right now is trying to stand up, and basically like there's gonna be like Edomite, like there's gonna be like Edomite like militias
Hmm.
that's gonna come out against Jake and against like the other nations, right? Because Esau wants his power back, man, and he's pissed
Hmm.
off.
And it's the
Yeah.
same thing that happened in Rome, man. You had a bunch of immigrants and different migrants. You know, you had the Eastern and Western Rome, pretty much, and the Western, no, it was the Eastern Empire. No, the Western it fell,
Hmm.
right? And you only had Constantine or Byzantine left, but that was due to a lot of luxury living. Spoilage, just like this place. This place is spoiled. It's over luxurious here. People are feeling themselves too much. They're overly vain. They're overly glutton. They indulge in too many pleasures, man. Just like ancient Rome, and the
Yeah,
same thing is gonna
Yeah.
happen, man. You know,
that's right.
but is that anything? That was it.
That's it for me.
Gone. All right, so yeah, I hope your brother's ratified there. Just bring out some history, and Lord's will. When we get more information, we just keep doing these lessons, and how the Spirit wills it. So with that, we're going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham,
Well,
Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakodash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops who rule well, who we learned this truth from, and salutations to you elect out there. Blessings. to you 144,000. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom. Shalom.